Hello everyone and welcome to the Game Design Archive with Edward and Ludwig.
Hello.
Hello Ludwig. We are gonna talk about balancing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, balancing. It's essential to all games, right? And
No.
we've probably
No
yes,
balancing.
it is. We've probably already covered like a lot of the points we're gonna cover today in like previous videos because, like as I said, balancing is so essential. So it pops up every now and then, right?
We don't have any
but-
original ideas, so we just
Yeah.
keep talking about the same things over and over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But today we wanted to talk about balancing more like in depth and as its own topic.
Mhm.
And we're actually gonna split it up into two different sections, I guess, because so the two sections are we're gonna talk about multiplayer games and then single player games like separately. And the reason for that is that I am of like completely opposite opinions when it comes to multiplayer games and single player games, which you probably are as well.
Yeah. I don't know if I agree with you, but I'm definitely I agree with that thing, right? That have very differing opinions between the two. Yeah.
And we're gonna start with multiplayer games because we're gonna say some very controversial things, and that's fun. Without further ado, I think, and I believe you think as well, Edward, right, that modern multiplayer games are way too balanced.
Yep.
Let's get that out of the way right away. So, like, if you look at competitive multiplayer games nowadays that are popular, both players and developers are like completely obsessed with like making everything completely 50-50 win rate, balanced to death, and stuff like that. And like there's balance patches every week, and there's characters get changed and whatever.
And they're like adding mechanics to like create sort of I don't know what to call it. I don't want to call it rock paper scissors scenarios, but like I feel like it's very common to have mechanics that are very what's the word? Like we talk about like these like continuous mechanics versus like very like I don't know. Like it's either A or B, right?
Yeah.
And for balancing purposes, those mechanics are really nice, right? Because it's easy to like flip it, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Whereas it's harder with these like more, I don't know what to call them, more fuzzy mechanics, right?
Yeah. So like,
but the problem is that those are the fun ones, right? The fuzzy ones are fun, and the like. Yeah, go ahead with your what you were gonna say.
Yeah, so I was gonna say if you have like an example to like explain it more, because maybe it's a bit unclear what you mean.
I don't know if I have a multiplayer example, but like I'm thinking of like parries or something, right? Where it's like, oh, you can parry this attack. I'm trying to think. Do I have a good example of this?
Well, don't like I don't play a lot of fighting games, so maybe I'm wrong here. But don't fighting games do that a lot nowadays, where it's like.
Yeah, actually, another good example in fighting games is like the meters, right?
Yeah.
They add these meters to be like counterbalancing. I guess that's more for win rates, right? But still, it's the same like idea on other things, where it's like, oh no, so like you're winning, but then they get this thing, so it's balanced, right? Because it's making the game even or something, right? Because they're getting some sort of like loser advantage or something, right?
Yeah.
But to be clear, it doesn't have to be about winning or losing. It could be like other things. But yeah, like that's an example of that, I guess.
Yeah, I think actually let's go into like comeback mechanics right now, because you brought them up already. So that's like one thing that I hate with modern multiplayer games. And I was playing what's it called? The new Valve MOBA, Deadlock.
I really do not like.
Yeah,
Deadlock,
I don't like Deadlock either, but I did play it a little bit when it came out.
Yeah.
With a few friends, and at first I was like, okay, I'm not really sure about this game, but it's fun enough to like play with my friends or whatever, so I'll join them when they play.
But to clarify, you're more of a like, I guess, shooter player than a mobile player. I guess.
Yeah, like I mostly play CS and stuff when it comes to competitive multiplayer stuff.
A lot of Dota 2, right? So for me, it's very.
Yeah.
Like I think Yeah, sorry, continue.
Yeah, well, anyways, I was gonna say, so at first I was fine with it. Like, I didn't enjoy it too much, but I could play it, right, and still enjoy it. But then they kept updating the game, as developers always do nowadays. And they kept
in their defense, it's in beta, right? So
that's true.
They should, in this case, they should update it. I mean, it's not out yet.
But yeah, that is true. It's not a live service game yet, but it will be. But anyways, yeah, so I was playing that, and then they started adding, well, they already had a bit of it, but then they like kept expanding the comeback mechanics. So there's like well, first of all, it's like the lane mechanics. I believe I've discussed this on the podcast before, where it's like if you're two people on the same lane, you both get the money, but it's like pre-assigned. So if you go to another lane, then you lose the money and stuff like that.
Pre-assigned as well. Okay. That sounds just stupid.
And then they had like these urns, they were called, which is basically like capture the flag. Like there's a side objective that you can capture. But the thing is that like the losing team gets more money than the winning team if they capture it and stuff like that. And they kept adding more and more stuff like that, and like kept making the comeback mechanic stronger and stronger and stronger. And you could very clearly notice that like as they added these things, matches started becoming longer.
Yeah.
Like they went from like 40-minute games to like 1 hour and 10-minute games at worst. Like that's when I stopped playing Deadlock, because I don't play it anymore. Yeah. Like I stopped playing after that, and I've never touched it again. But like the average match went like above 1 hour at one point.
Yeah.
And like.
But in their defense, though, you compared to other genres, I would say MOBAs do have more comeback. I'm not saying it's good in that, right? Mm-hmm. Because you have like the RPG layer or whatever in a MOBA, right? Where I guess you technically don't have to have it be very comeback heavy, but you get what I'm saying, right? Where it's like if you win a team fight in Dota, for example, then you're gonna get like more if you're behind than if you're ahead, right? Yeah.
Well, I think also the like RPG mechanics sort of I think the developers look at it as a problem that needs to be solved, because what can end up happening what can end up happening, of course, is that if one team plays way better at the start, they will like be way ahead. Yeah. Right, and they are more powerful, right? Because they have stronger builds, they bought more items and stuff like that. Yeah. So they are objectively more powerful than the other team. But then the devs see that as sort of a problem when like that's sort of the point of the game, right? Yeah. It's like the point of a MOBA is to outscale the opponent's team or the opposing team. Yeah. And like if you're adding a bunch of comeback mechanics to counteract that, then you're kind of like. You're making the early game not matter at all, basically. And in MOBAs, I think the early game is the most interesting part. So, like, if you actually wanted to solve the problem, I think a better solution would be to make the game, like, finish faster. Like, give the winning team more advantage or something, so that they like end up steamrolling the other team.
There is like so like just to clarify with the comeback, like the go like. There is a mechanical, like it's actually, like maybe some people think that the only reason to have like the scaling RPG thing is to have comebacks, right? But it's, I guess it's technically tied to comebacks, but like there is a interesting aspect in the fact that your characters are valued differently, right?
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So like. It becomes this thing where like this hero, for example, is very powerful, but you don't want them to die because they're worth a lot of money, right? Yeah. So you make sure that like, and that's actually lost. That's actually really interesting that we got here. That I feel like that's sort of lost. It's still there, but it's not as like there was really interesting dynamics in old Dota where it's like as a support, for example, you didn't want to level up because the only thing that happened was you were worth more money, right? I mean, you got a little bit more powerful, but like there wasn't really any point to it, right?
Yeah.
But they have like completely removed all of that now. They've had like talents and all kinds of garbage. But again, they're like that dynamic of like, oh no, actually like let's say the hard carry extends too far and they like catch them and they're about to die, but then like as a support, for example, you wanna like jump in there and try to get the carry to get away, right? Even if you die, because they're like, if you die, you're gonna be dead for like 30 seconds. Like we're talking back, and I mean, it depends on when in the game. Like your death timer is way shorter because you're lower level and your value is lower, right?
Yeah.
So there's a ton of interesting stuff there.
Yeah.
So it's not only, my point is that these, like, the comeback itself is actually sort of a consequence of that, right? In general, I don't like the fact that things rubber band, and if you can tell in MOBAs, right, like you said, where like if they make the comebacks too good, it becomes super lame, because then the games just get really long, right?
Yeah, like it becomes super boring. Like there's like, okay, the first 20 minutes there's gameplay, then there's like 30 minutes of stalemate, and then like the rest of the game, and it ends up being
it
like
also makes the early game pointless, because you can just turn the game, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Not a fan.
And
but
there
for
is
other
actually
genres, it's even worse, right? So it's comeback mechanics in like shooters is just not, like, if there is no like meta layer or whatever you want to call it, I don't know what to call it, but you know what, like
like progression stuff.
Then there is like no point to have
I was actually gonna bring that up, because like CS is fairly light on comeback mechanics compared to modern games, but they still sadly do have a few, and the main one is like the loss bonus. So like you have the economy in CS, right, where you buy weapons and stuff, and if you lose, I think it's up to 4 rounds in a row, you get slightly more money when you've lost like more rounds than if you've only lost 1 round. So like if you're on a loss streak, you get more money per loss instead of, you get what I'm saying.
Yep.
But the thing about comeback mechanics that I find very interesting is that like I think comeback mechanics actually like prevent comebacks, because I think I've mentioned this before, I'm not sure, at least I probably mentioned this to you, but like comeback mechanics actually prevent the comeback from happening, because they change the definition of a comeback, right?
Right, if you're talking about the fun comebacks, I guess. I mean, it becomes a part of the game.
Like an actual comeback. Like if you look at CS, okay, so you have the first to 13 wins, right?
Yeah. What you're saying is it's not a comeback if they start winning after 5 rounds, because they got more money because they waited.
Well, no. So what I'm saying is that like a comeback in CS would be the enemy team wins 11 rounds and then you win 13 in a row, right? That's the most insane comeback you could ever have in CS, right? But the thing is that if you add comeback mechanics, then you actually make the comeback less impressive, right? Because like if there are no comeback mechanics and the enemy wins 11 rounds in a row and then you win 13 rounds in a row, that's like super impressive, right? That's like insane, once in a lifetime, or probably not once in a lifetime, but you get what I'm saying. It's that doesn't happen.
It could be a very one-sided map, I guess, in Counter-Strike.
That's true also. But like if it's like a fairly balanced map or whatever. So but anyways, so in that case a comeback is super 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 impressive. But let's say we add a bunch of comeback mechanics, right? Now all of a sudden, like
that's what I mean. It's like not
because it's like built
after, like,
into the game.
Rounds, right? Then it's not impressive. It needs to be more because of all this money stuff.
Well, no, I'm thinking of this in a way more abstract sense. I think it's
my point is that you're getting money back. So like it's not like if let's say you didn't get, like, you get more money over time, is what you said, right? So then it's not like it's almost expected to lose like 1 or 2 rounds and then get back, right? Because you get more money or something. Yeah. So okay, I get what you're saying now. So it's like if you don't have the loss bonus, then it's more impressive, right?
Yeah, winning is more impressive. Yeah, okay, So that's sort of what I mean. I just find it interesting because to me, like, as I said, the comeback mechanics actually prevent comebacks from happening, because then the comeback isn't actually a comeback. Like it's not, because a comeback is that, you know, we have like turned it around against the odds, right? But if we stack the odds in the favor of the loser, then you aren't actually turning it around against the odds. You're turning it around with the odds, right? And so it doesn't become a comeback anymore by definition, if that makes sense. Like it's very abstract, I guess, but I guess I hope you get what I'm saying, in a sense.
Yep.
And so like what I'm trying to say basically is that I am fundamentally against comebacks because of that reason. Because if we go back to Deadlock, I think that's like the like best example of a game where I actually felt this like super bad feeling about it. Because like being behind and then turning it around and winning never felt good in Deadlock. Partly because the rounds ended up being like 1 hour long or more. And you know, you get bored after a while. But I think part of it is also that like we didn't really do anything impressive. We just utilized the mechanics that were there, right? It's like with the urn thing that I mentioned. It's like, okay, we captured the urn and then we like caught up to the enemy team and we had the same economy basically, right? And so that's not impressive. What would be impressive was that like we won like a massive team fight against the odds and then used that to farm a bit and like catch up and stuff like that. Like that's an actual comeback.
Yeah.
Whereas us utilizing the comeback mechanics, that doesn't really feel like a comeback, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I hope my rant makes sense. But I wanted to actually move on to CS now, even though we've discussed CS a bit already. Because there is... I had a discussion with a person about balancing. And we mentioned like CS as an example. And... I sort of realized one very interesting thing, and it's like if you look at the AWP from CS, we were discussing like, okay, how would you actually know that the AWP is balanced, right? If you were making your own game, how would you know that? And I sort of realized when we were discussing.
Sorry,
that,
I just need to interject and say
Yeah.
that if you're a developer, you look at the numbers,
Yeah,
and say, oh look, it's 50% good. Now it's balanced.
yeah.
Which obviously doesn't.
But
sorry.
But what I realized was that if you look at CS historically, the AWP has never been balanced.
Yeah.
Like Valve has been nerfing the AWP the last 30 years.
Yeah.
And they've kept nerfing it over and over and over again. And I sort of realized that like, well, the AWP hasn't really been overpowered ever, right? It's been powerful, and it's been more powerful at times, but it's never been overpowered, right?
I mean, I don't
It's
know
like-
if it has. Maybe it has been overpowered at some. I don't know, but
Well, I mean that depends on what you mean by overpowered, I guess.
yeah.
But what I'm saying is that like the AWP is very situationally useful,
Yeah.
but it's not always useful, and it's not versatile at all. Like that's kind of the thing with the AWP. It's not versatile compared to like the AK or the M4. And so it ends up sort of balancing itself. So like if you look at the AWP in the beginning of CSGO, it had like 10 rounds in the mag and it could one-shot you in the foot and stuff like that, which it can't do anymore, and it has 5 rounds in the mag. So they've like nerfed it and stuff like that. But like it doesn't actually matter that much, right? Like it matters a bit. There are situations where you know, hitting someone, like I play CS a lot and I still do it, and like there are situations where like I have a friend who ops a lot and he'll be like, oh no, I hit him in the foot, fuck, and he doesn't get the kill. But like it doesn't happen that often, right? And it's generally not like match deciding or whatever. And I guess my point is that like since the AWP is sort of it has pros and cons, and therefore it doesn't need to be 100% balanced, if that makes sense. Like it's situationally very good, but that means that it's also situationally bad, right?
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter that it's a bit OP in certain situations, because there are situations where you don't want to have an AWP, right?
Yeah.
Does that kind of make sense? And so I feel like a lot of developers put a lot of focus into this, like, oh, everything needs to be 100% balanced or whatever. But if you have like interesting options, like weapon options, for example, if we're looking at that, then they don't really need to be balanced, because you can just make them situationally powerful. It's the same with like the SMGs in CS. That's actually a very good example, because recently they nerfed the SMGs quite severely, because the SMGs you can jump and shoot with in CS. Like that's the only weapon you can jump and shoot with, basically. And so it's very common that like when you're going around a corner with an SMG, you jump around the corner to like surprise and throw off the enemy and stuff like that. And they like nerfed the jumping accuracy for SMGs. Maybe even the running accuracy, I don't remember. But anyways, my point is that SMGs weren't OP before that change, and they aren't underpowered after that change. So it's like they're still like useful in the same situations, and yeah, they're slightly worse, but like it ends up not mattering that much, I guess.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does, but like I would argue that even if the mechanics are not like situational, I still think balancing is overrated. Like especially because if you look at a lot of the modern games, I mean, Counter-Strike is one of the more I don't know what to say. Like it isn't the same as the old one, but it's like very similar to the old one.
Yeah.
But most other games, you cannot play the original game anymore.
Yeah, that's very true.
Right, and that's like not cool with me, because like we talk about with single player games, like and you know, preserving gameplay and stuff. It's almost worse than if they turn the server off, because then you can't play it at all, right? Yeah. Like because it's live, no one can host it, or like you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, well, I think like Dota is a pretty good example of that.
Yeah, it's absolutely garbage these days.
Yeah, because you've played a lot of Dota 2, and you talk about how good Dota 2 used to be.
I mean, it's probably like it's definitely flawed back in the day, but it's I think it's, you know, okay, I'm gonna make a dumb analogy as usual, right? It's sort of like if you spend like a couple of thousand hours playing basketball, right? And you're like really into basketball, and then for some reason the developer of basketball, because there's a developer of basketball, decides that no, actually you're supposed to use your foot now, and all of a sudden we're playing football instead, right?
Yeah.
That's lame for multiple reasons, right? Because one is that it's not the same game, right? But another aspect is that your skills don't they transfer slightly. Maybe let's say it's a more like something more similar to basketball, right? So your skills transfer a bit, right? But it's still like you know, they've added a bunch of stuff and like for games, I mean, like it's different enough where you'd have to spend like a couple more thousand hours to be good at it again or whatever. And that's, I mean, to be good at it, yeah, whatever. I was never good, but you know what I mean. It's like becomes this thing where you can't play the game that you liked, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess that's partly because they're making very big changes. I don't even like small changes, to be honest with you. I think most balancing is definitely to
like it focus on the small stuff.
Yeah.
I actually do you want to say something else, because I actually wanted to talk about that specifically. But you can maybe like interject. Because there is one more thing, example from CS that I wanted to bring up, which specifically is about this like obsession with small balance changes, like very tiny tweaks and stuff like that. And I believe I've mentioned this on the podcast before as well. That's the AUG from CS. Once again, talking about CS. So there was a brief period of time. I don't remember what year it was. Must have been like 2019 or something. Maybe it's way late. I'm probably super wrong about this year. But I believe it was around like 2018, 2019 or something. Maybe a bit later. Where in CSGO, the meta changed drastically overnight. So usually the main weapons are the AK and the M4, right?
Yeah.
But after one update where they lowered the price of the AUG and the SSG, like the scoped rifle variants, they like lowered the price by like $100 to a few $100. I don't remember exactly. Everyone started playing them, because what ended up happening was that when they lowered the price of the weapons, people were like, oh, they lowered the price, I'm gonna try them out now.
Yeah.
And people realize that, holy crap, these are OP and have been OP for like several years, and nobody has noticed it because no one ever bought them.
Yeah.
Like no one ever played with them, but they have been OP. And I think that's like such a funny. And so what ended up happening, is that everyone played with the AUG and the SSG instead of the M4 and the AK for a while, until they like nerfed them again.
Yeah.
But I think it's just funny because it's like,
I mean, it isn't fun. I mean, I guess it's funny, but like,
yeah.
My point is that is sort of one of the points I was trying to make with what I said before, which is that balance is like, perceived balance is very like, for multiplayer games specifically, right? It's very like, I don't know what word to use, maybe social or whatever, or like not social, but you get what I'm saying. It's like, it's not actually in the numbers at all. It's very much like what the people are using, and like what's right, what hero, like if we've talked about Dota and CS too much, but whatever, like in a MOBA or like a hero shooter, it's like, okay, this hero is very common, so then people play the other hero that is good against that hero, but maybe there's another hero that's like really, really good, but you don't play that hero because like you're focusing on the fact to counter the current meta or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And like, it's very obvious that this is the case, and that the balance is actually not like, that people are not playing at the optimal level when you look at StarCraft, right? Because people are playing Brood War still, right? And I mean, maybe they did some patch. I don't think they did any patches, if I'm like, it's the same game, right?
Yeah,
from back in the day. And I am very confident in that they're not using the same meta.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, not even close. And if this is also another aspect that people don't like to admit, skill develops over time, like universally, right? So if you look at like if like a StarCraft player today, Brood War, right, would stomp a Brood War player from 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's the same with Counter-Strike and Dota.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if you look at like super old pro games from like the beginning of CSGO, they were like comparatively pretty bad. Like slightly above average players would probably be able to be pro players.
Exactly.
Back then. Yeah.
So like, why are we balancing these games so much? Like this, we don't even know what's good, right?
Yeah.
Especially with the situational stuff like you talked about. Those things, like you said, are situational, which means that there is no way anyone has any clue about what's overpowered or not, right?
Yeah.
And for MOBAs as well, it's like, oh, I mean, you have a ton of heroes, so it's like, obviously, we don't know which ones are the most OP. But then the developers still insist on like, you know, tweaking the numbers.
Yeah.
And they like, the Dota people get a lot of praise for this. I don't know how I feel about it. I think I definitely prefer it over big number changes, but so they what they used to do, I don't know if they do it anymore, is like they would move like numbers very, very slightly all the time, right? So you would be like, okay, increase the damage by 1 or whatever in level 1, right? And they'll do that over and over again until the hero is played, right? And then they'll start nerfing it, right? And what that creates is that creates some sort of tipping point, right? But I'm not even sure that's true, because it's like someone tries it out and it's like you said with those weapons, it's like, oh, holy fuck, this thing is OP now, right? And then everyone plays that, right? It's just that no one notices because no one played that, because they were focusing on this other hero that was OP, right? But it's definitely better than the comparison where it's like, oh, this hero was good, so now we just nerf it, and now that hero's bad, and like, okay, but maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
I think.
And I don't know, like, I don't know why people what's the goal of the balancing, I guess, right? Because it's like, is the goal of the balancing for everything to be 50-50 good? Because in that case, I understand why I don't like it, because that sounds extremely fucking boring. But if it's something else, then like, what is it? Because the meta will move anyways, right? Like people can scream all day that this is OP, that's OP, but like in a couple of months someone's gonna figure out something else, right? Because people are getting better all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think with multiplayer games, people severely underestimate the fact that you have another player you're going up against.
Yeah.
Like in a single player game, I can understand like, okay, this is a cheesy strat, it's uninteresting or whatever. But like,
I mean, we're gonna get to single player later, right? But in single player games, the single player can't do anything about it. If you find a cheesy strat, because, you're gonna be able to use that forever, right?
Exactly. But like the thing with multiplayer games is like they evolve because people learn to deal with things.
Yeah.
And like obviously you can have like something that's way too OP that like completely shuts down everything, and that's not very interesting, right?
Yeah, I mean,
there
can be bugs and shit, right? Where it's like, look,
that's
this like.
True.
I mean, bugs and bugs, quotation mark bugs, where it's like, right, like unintended side effects of how something was coded, right?
Yeah.
That creates behaviors that are insanely overpowered. Like, I get if you want to balance stuff like that, right? That's not the same thing.
Yeah, but I think it's like if you look at a hero shooter or MOBA, for example, as you mentioned, it's like if one hero, I think one thing that people don't realize, I guess, is that if one hero is overpowered, then the heroes that counter that hero become more powerful as well, right?
Yeah.
Because they counter the powerful hero.
Yeah.
And then what happens is that the heroes that counter those heroes become more powerful.
Yeah.
Because that allows you to bring the first most powerful hero. And like it goes on and on infinitely, right?
Yes.
And so... But the thing is that takes time to develop. Like it takes time for people to realize that. Like if there's a character that gets buffed and they become a bit too powerful, then give it a few weeks or whatever, and then everyone's gonna play the characters that counter that hero, and then like the meta's gonna keep evolving.
Yeah,
like
but there's a like even funnier thing about like, because that's if you balance it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't balance it, you're gonna get that effect anyways, right? Mm-hmm. Because what's gonna happen is, let's say one hero is really overpowered, and the hero that counters that, is gonna be picked a lot, right? Because that first hero is gonna get picked a lot because it's overpowered.
Yeah.
And then what's gonna happen is the hero that's countering that hero, people are gonna get good at that hero, right? So then that hero is gonna be the new meta. Mm-hmm. So then there's gonna be a new meta where you counter that hero, right? Because people are getting better at that hero. Yeah. And that happens without the balancing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's like...
And I'm not saying like you could never ever balance anything, because I mean, sure, tweak some numbers, right? But it's like how it is now is like ridiculous. Like there is not a single game that I've played in the last at least 10 years, right? Probably longer, that is even close to the same game that I play, like when I played it the first time. Mm-hmm. They are like completely different games, right?
Yeah. Well, to be fair, that's not just balance changes. That's also like they add stuff.
Yeah.
Which is...
I mean, that's a consequence of the what do you call it? Live service garbage, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
exactly.
But like even because they like add for hero stuff, they add heroes, right? And heroes they're bad at adding new heroes because they're making dumb decisions.
Like I mean, I think the funniest example of this is Rainbow Six Siege, which I played very briefly, because they like when they ran out of ideas for DLC heroes, they just remade old heroes but better.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's what they do in the...
or like slightly different.
Like Overwatch. When they released Overwatch 2, like holy those heroes were insane. Like I don't know what they were thinking. Mm-hmm. They were basically like, there was this like attack, what do you call them in Overwatch? I don't even remember. Like the DPS hero that was like a combination of like the best escape and the best damage and the best like one hit what do you say, in one hero, and it's like
like they combined all the best heroes
like
into one.
Why? What are you, I don't know. And then I mean, I guess they made a 2 there, so they have an excuse for, but then like they were messing with stuff, so like, oh no, it's 5 heroes, but then they're adding 6 back, and I don't even know, like I don't know what they're doing. And there is also another good example where it's like it took people like, and so I'm sure someone that plays way more Overwatch than I do is gonna comment and say no, blah, and maybe they're partly right, but it took people like years to figure out that tanks were overpowered. Right, and I mean, they did a lot of nerfs to DPS heroes over time, but still, like they ended up at this point where like people were playing 3 tanks and 3 healers, right? Because they were like, these heroes that have like twice as much health as every other hero is kind of insane, right? And I mean, sure, you could argue it's a combination of the fact that they had nerfed DPSs too much, but I think they would have ended up there anyways, honestly.
Yeah, because they were like OP in Overwatch 1, right? And then
it was in Overwatch 1 this happened. That's when they started doing they split up, so you had to play 2-2-2.
Yeah, exactly.
So you couldn't pick more than 2 of anything in like ranked and stuff. Yeah.
There is one more thing I want to mention about multiplayer games before we move on to single player games. And that's perhaps a bit of a controversial opinion, but it's based in this like thing that we bring up a lot, which is that like unfairness is kind of fun, I guess.
The best thing ever.
Yeah, and like, so I'll take a CS example because that's the like competitive multiplayer game I play the most. So CSGO, for example, used to have a thing called one-way smokes, where it's like it's a smoke that you can see through from one side but not the other side. So like it's quote unquote unfair because one person has an advantage over the other. And I think, like, obviously these things can be a problem, but I think the actual impact of that is way overblown. And the reason for that is, like, as we've been saying before, that like players adapt. Because what ends up happening, if there's like a super powerful one-way smoke that you can do where you can see through in order to shoot people, then people will learn that when they see that smoke, that's a one-way smoke, right? And so they will play around that. So like it's like an exploit / glitch and a problem like the first time it happens. But then once the person that gets killed through the one-way smoke, once they learn that that's a one-way smoke, it kind of becomes an interesting part of the game, if that makes sense. It's like, okay, I see that smoke. Okay, that's a one-way smoke, so I know that he's gonna see me through the smoke, so now I'm gonna have to play around it. Like, I'm not saying that this is good necessarily. I'm just saying that it's not as much of a problem as people make it out to be.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and in those cases, I think I can understand more. It's sort of like the way I mentioned earlier, where it's like, look, it's like an exploit, but it's not an exploit. Like, it could be, like, you could argue it's a mechanic, right? And I think I find those things really interesting in a lot of games, so I like them. But I understand sometimes that if a dev wanna patch some of them, right? Because some of them are like ridiculous. Another thing, by the way,
guess it. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, okay, I'll say the thing.
Yeah, go
ahead. There is actually competitive scenes in these games as well, right? And I think on like maybe this is a silly opinion to have, but I think it's very like mean to like there's people spending, you know, lots and lots of time getting good at these games, right? And they are already like not getting very well paid, right? Only if they win and stuff, right? I'm talking about like the professional players.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
And then these developers just like keep changing the game under their feet all the fucking time. Like, I feel sorry for them a bit, right? Like, just keep changing it all the time. I mean, so yeah.
I think if you look at CS, like, that's been mostly the same. But even when CS2 came out, that was like super controversial, and there were like a few pros who didn't play it for a while.
Yeah.
I think most pros have like gone over to CS2.
I mean, they have to if they want money, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially since Valve were kind of assholes and like disabled CS:GO and stuff like that. But yeah, it's very interesting because like.
Yeah, but that's actually like a good point. Like that's sort of the point, right? What you said, they disable. That's what they're doing. Like in that case, it was more obvious because it was like go to 2. But like developers do that all the time. They're patching their games, changing them, right? And it's like these professional and I mean normal players as well. But they're like now you have to play in this game instead. It's like okay, right? It's just you don't have a choice, right? It's just now now the game is this, okay?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate, like, because it's like.
What if I don't like that version?
Yeah, but what ends up happening is that you get what happens with basically all competitive multiplayer games, which is that they become a different game after a while.
Yeah.
Like a completely different game after a while.
Yeah, because over time you change everything basically.
Exactly, because it's like you make a tiny change and then, it doesn't matter that much, but then 10 years of tiny changes, that's probably gonna do quite a bit. Yeah. And then, a lot of developers also do big changes, which is even worse. Yeah. But it's like, if you have a competitive game that like works and is interesting and is deep, you don't really need to change it.
Don't patch it.
Yeah.
But then again, like you can argue that okay, Brood War is expansion, right? So maybe sometimes it's fine, but I feel like in that case actually it's fine because the original is still there, right? You can just play it like it's literally an expansion. You play that game instead of the old one, right? Yeah. I feel like that's more fair because it's like the developers were like, here's some things we wanted to change and some new. I mean, it was probably more for money and single player stuff, right? But they did some changes, right, to the multiplayer, and I'm pretty. I mean, since everyone is playing that version, I'm assuming that one is way better, right? I don't know if it is, but I'm assuming that Brood War. I mean, compared to normal StarCraft.
Yeah.
But then again, if you want to play that one, you can still play that one, right? So.
Yeah, I think StarCraft is actually a pretty good example because, as you said, everyone's playing Brood War. Yeah, but as you said, like everyone's playing Brood War.
Yeah.
But what if because like we have StarCraft 2 now, right? And people play that for a while, but they don't really play it anymore, right?
The normal StarCraft?
StarCraft 2.
Yes, I mean there's people playing StarCraft 2, I think. But
yeah, but Brood War is more popular, right?
I don't know if it's more popular globally, but maybe it is these days. I don't know.
I think
like StarCraft 2 was way popular for a while.
Yeah, but I think it's like dropped after a while. I'm not sure
maybe,
actually.
Maybe, but the problem is of like I guess like how much tournament marketing and stuff it is.
Yeah,
I think I don't know for sure, but I think like in Korea, for example, there it's back to Brood War, right? I mean, I don't think they ever changed to 2 really, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, and that's sort of my point. It's like, okay, but what if Blizzard removed Brood War when they released StarCraft 2?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, you would lose that like whole scene and that like super interesting game or whatever.
Yeah.
Which is like, it has happened with a lot of competitive games.
Yeah, all of them basically.
Yeah. I think like the only exception is CS, but even that has become slightly worse over time. But yeah, any other competitive game I think of is like, yeah, that used to be playable, but it's actually literally unplayable now.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting.
Yeah. But like the real reason, okay, the problem is, right? The real reason they're doing these balance changes, in my opinion, is not for balance, right? Unfortunately, because they wouldn't do it if it was just for balance. It's for retention, right? We talked about this the other day, not on the podcast, right? Where what was it, Torchlight something? Right?
Yeah, Torchlight Infinite.
Where you could see, like, if you looked at the Steam charts, you could see that every patch was like a retention spike or whatever.
Yeah, like a bunch of people started playing, and then like they literally like there were basically no players after like a week after the big patch drop.
Yeah.
And then the next patch drop, and it was even more players than last time, and then it went back to 0, and then it kept going like that. Exactly. It was a very fun.
And like, so this is definitely part of it, right? For sure, there are people coming back when they patch stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, now this hero is not OP anymore, blah blah blah, right? So now I can play, and then I go play, and then the developers, while they're at it, add some new skins or something, right? And then look, now they buy some new skins, and then they get some money, and yeah.
Yeah, I think another. I guess this is basically the same thing, but seasons that games do nowadays. Like CS started doing seasons with CS2, and it's very clear that when there's a new season, there's way more players.
Yeah.
Like everyone goes back to the game, and then they play it for a while, and then they drop it. Like, obviously they do it because of retention, but it's like, it sucks because they end up updating the games and making them worse and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's hard to tell how much this is like developers have actually gotten worse at balance and how much it is like just doing balancing, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense at all, actually.
Yeah. Well, I think like it's hard to say.
I mean, I guess the focus on 50-50 is definitely just universally bad, right? It's very obvious. It's sort of the example I think we brought it up before, where it's like there's these like UX people that are like trying to optimize for most amounts of clicks in a UI or something, which is like insane, because
you don't want to be
many clicks in a UI, right? That's bad. But like, so if you're just like, if you're blind and just looking at the numbers and not looking at the whole picture, then you get that. And that's sort of what's happening with game balance, right? But like, okay, let's say, like, the thing is, okay, I'm gonna be controversial here.
Go ahead.
Because we need to go through this stuff. I mean, we might have to we'll see how we do with single player. Maybe we'll have a long episode, or maybe we'll just keep going with multiplayer. We'll see. Because we need to touch on this, right? Because I am actually of the opinion that even if it isn't balanced, right? So let's say in a theoretical scenario, we have a hero shooter or a MOBA or something, and there is a hero that is better than the other heroes. That is part of the identity of that game. And balancing that is lame. And the same goes for bad heroes. Okay? Yeah. And let me why is this point important? Well, it's important because you get this thing, right, where let's say it's a tournament, right? I don't know why a tournament. Whatever. Like someone like, it becomes this thing where like this character or hero is overpowered, and like, oh, you're lame if you pick that hero or whatever. It becomes this sort of like social part, right? We go back to social balance, right? It becomes this thing. And then like, let's say it's a like tournament for fun, and someone picks the bad hero. Everyone's gonna cheer on that player, right? Yeah. Because it's like the shitty hero that no one ever picks. So they never see that. They always see that boring popular hero, right? Yeah. And it's like this interesting dynamic there, right? And you lose that completely if you just keep like changing them, because the characters lose their identity, right? Yeah. Because they have an identity within the game. And I think this actually, like, I could be wrong because I don't play fighting games that much, but I think this historically has worked better with fighting games because they have like they release sequels, right? Yeah. So you kept like, oh, if you played like, I don't know, some Street Fighter, like 3 or something, right? Then if you play that game, then that character has that identity in that game, right? Or whatever, if that makes sense. And you lose that completely if you keep like changing stuff all the time, right? Yeah.
I think even I'll take this even further, and I'll say, even if we have a really bad character, even if that character never ends up being picked ever, it's like better to have them in their like iconic terrible state.
Yes, that's my point. Yes,
and there's actually a very good example of this, because I mentioned that I played Rainbow Six Siege briefly before they like completely ruined that game. And Rainbow Six Siege had a character who was called Tachanka, I think, and he was like the most atrocious character ever. His ability was that he like placed a turret on the map, like a manable turret gun that you could sit in, and it was like super bad. It was so terrible, and the guy became a meme, right? Because he was like the worst character by far, and he was super bad, and he was super funny, and he made no sense whatsoever. And then the developers like made a big overhaul to the character, and made him like super generic. I don't even remember what he does now because it was like the most generic, boring thing ever.
Yeah.
And like everyone stopped caring about him like the day after,
anymore.
right?
Yeah.
Because he wasn't funny anymore, right? Yeah. So it's like Tachanka being bad.
Actually, yeah, keep going. We need to touch on overhauls.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, so like Tachanka being bad was like a part of Rainbow Six culture, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And they like overhauled him, and now it's like, no, okay, nobody cares anymore. Now he's the guy that used to be bad, and that's boring now.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's just boring because like it's like.
Yeah, but like even if like so the thing about like something being overpowered, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like okay, I'll talk about a game that no one has ever heard of because I can, right? Except you, which is Nosgoth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like the developers of that game was actually so bad that they couldn't even like they couldn't even do the shitty balancing thing, right? Or whatever. They tried to do it, but they failed, which is funny, right? But in that game there was like this class, right? So it wasn't hero based technically, but it was class based, right? Which was called the Hunter, right? You remember the Hunter?
Yeah.
Which is sort of the all-round class that has the like the CC and like pretty good CC and you know the automatic weapon thing, right?
Yeah, decent damage.
Yeah, I'll put some gameplay up so you can see, so you kind of get like it's a asymmetric multiplayer game, whatever, right? And everyone complained that the Hunter was OP. I mean, not everyone, not but a lot of people complained about the Hunter being OP, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, and it was not like you couldn't pick other classes. Actually, it was sort of like you always wanted hunters and something else, right? So it was like it wasn't even that bad. Like, I mean, some played 4 of them, but like usually you wanted like a lot of them and something else, right? And then people were complaining because like, oh, but they want to play all these other classes. And I mean, if they're playing public games, they can do that, of course, right? But my point is that to me, right, that was the like that was that game. That was what like the way the interesting like gameplay loop of that game was having a lot of hunters and maybe like a scout, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, does that make sense, right? Like that.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
so like the point is not it's balanced or unbalanced. It's like that was the game, right? The game was you play a lot of as humans because there was like asymmetric, so you played 2 teams, right? Like having and like even as I say that also evolved over time, by the way, because people got better, right? So like at one point it was like only hunters. But then it was like, hang on, these like other abilities are kind of useful. So then, you know, so like that would probably have evolved over time anyways, right? Sure. So maybe what I'm saying doesn't make sense. But the point is like balancing that doesn't make any sense because it's like, oh, but this other thing should be good as well. Yeah, but like, first of all, we don't know. Maybe it is good. Maybe like people just need to get better at the game.
Mm-hmm.
And second, why does it? Why? I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and to be clear, like it's not like you can't pick those other characters, right? Like we said in those games, right? It's a multiplayer game, sure, but it's not like life or death or anything. You can go play what was his name, like
Tachanka.
Yeah, like if you could play him every game if you wanted to, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In fact, it would be kind of funny, right? If you're the guy that's
you
good
would be
at
the Tachanka guy.
Yeah, like you see how much more interesting that is for like from the like we talked about like community and social aspects. That's way more interesting. And if we go back to like we had an episode back in the day, right, where we talked about like server browsers and communities and stuff, right? If you're a community, that's even cooler because then like I know Rainbow Six was always matchmaking, but let's say it was server browser, then you're gonna be like, oh, that's that guy that always picks that character, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then you get that aspect as well, but you lose all of this because everything wants to like be in this like 50-50 uniform blob that everything is like symmetric and nothing is ever interesting and everything is boring and everyone just grinds ranked and buys skins and plays the latest patch and everything is boring.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It's actually interesting that you bring that up with like the hunter being the most picked character.
Yeah.
Because I kind of I feel like there's a parallel here to CS. Sorry that I'm bringing us back to CS again, but I have to. Which is that CS has a lot of useless weapons. Like, because they have the AK, they have the M4, and they have, like, the Mac 10 or whatever. And then they have a bunch of, like, they have the UMP and the MP5 and stuff like that no one ever uses. And people seem to complain about that a lot. Like the fact that they have useless weapons.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's sort of a parallel here to the Hunter thing, where it's like, okay, yeah, so there's like, you can pick the Alchemist that is useless or whatever in Nosgoth. Yeah. Like, it doesn't.
It's not, by the way. The Alchemist is.
Okay, I
it's not. It's not useless.
Yeah. I'm not good at Nosgoth. Yeah. But yeah, it's like, it doesn't actually matter that there are bad choices, right?
Yeah. Because
the game is still balanced, right? Like, even if you picking a team of 3 hunters and 1 other guy is not gonna make you automatically win, right? That's a balanced match, right?
Yeah.
And so the game is still balanced. It's just that certain choices are better than others.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, so it's not really a balance issue.
No.
Right? If that makes sense. It's like, it doesn't matter that CS has a bunch of useless weapons, because the weapons that people use are balanced.
Yeah.
I guess. And like, of course, it's more like streamlined and easier to learn and stuff if you don't have a bunch of useless stuff. But like, it doesn't matter that much. It's not like a balancing problem.
Is that true though? Like, I think it's actually easier to learn in the way it is now. Like, so if we bring it back to hero shooters, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if the meta evolves naturally over time with like, this hero is OP and then you people play the counter hero, and like, it's not constantly changing. It's gonna be way more like natural for you to learn the game, right? Because it's gonna be like, you need to like, if you want to be good, let's say you want to be a good DPS player in Overwatch or something, and they didn't balance anything, right? Then you can just play the one that was like good at the time, right? And then maybe you would have to learn some new ones like over time, but it wouldn't be this like, oh, new patch, now I need to play this other hero, right?
Yeah, but like, even if even if we assume the meta doesn't evolve, like, let's say the weapons in CS, right? Let's take the MP5 for example. Well, the MP5 has been good, so that's a bad example. Yeah. But like,
I guess my point is that if, let's say, all the weapons like would at some point, like, they would keep rebalancing CS all the time. And like, so one patch the AK is OP, and the next patch the MP5 is like, you use the MP5 instead of the AK or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then like, sure, that like, people can adapt to that, but the point is, there's people that know the like spread pattern of the AK, right? And like, you get one. I mean, you probably do this crap where you practice and like move in the right direction and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And there would have to be way more stuff like that, right? You would have to like that's what I'm saying makes sense, right? Where it's like, you can focus in on the things that are actually good. You don't need to like learn everything, because it might be good at some point.
Yeah, no, I 100% get what you're saying. But what I'm saying more is like, even if the MP5 ends up never being meta again, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't think CS would be a better game if Valve buffed the MP5 until people started using it. That's sort of my point. It's like, the MP5 can be bad. It doesn't matter. It's like, it's a pointless option to have in the buy menu, but like, that's better than them like updating the game and changing it a bunch and like messing a bunch of stuff up.
Yeah. I mean, you could argue there's too many, or like,
exactly.
Useless
so like
weapons or whatever in CS, but
in that case, remove them.
But then again, like, they could remove some of them, I guess, right? Yeah. But it's like, it doesn't really matter anyways, right?
Yeah, but what I think is like the important thing I want to say is that like, which I think in the CS case, I think people would recognize that actually, now that I think of it. It's like, people, if you asked players, like CS players, should they buff the MP5 until people started using it regularly? I think most would say no, because people like the current meta or whatever you want to say. And so, but if you look at like hero shooters, for example, people who play hero shooters are like obsessed with every hero being, 50-50 completely balanced.
And it sucks. It's fucking garbage.
Everyone having the same pick rate and whatever.
It's so lame.
And it's like, it doesn't actually matter.
No.
And
especially like, sorry, I just need to add one thing to what you're saying. Especially since almost no one is playing on a competitive level, right? So it's like, it's actually more fun to pick a hero if it's not like meta, right? Or whatever. Like we talked earlier, the guy that's gonna pick that Rainbow Six guy every match or whatever. Right? Yeah. Stuff like there is nothing stopping. I guess your fucking rank.
Yeah.
But exactly, whatever. I don't fucking care about that stupid ass rank. Okay, but I guess most people do. Whatever. Anyways, keep going.
Yeah. So what was I gonna say? Yeah. So like. Even when you're looking at the like sort of bad weapons, like I don't know if shotguns are considered bad in CS. Because I was gonna say
sometimes, right?
Yeah, because I was gonna say that I think the shotguns are underrated.
Yeah, they probably are.
And I guess this ties into one other thing, which is that like the play style of the player matters a lot as well.
Yeah.
Because I think the reason that I like shotguns, like I have friends who hate shotguns in CS and say they suck and whatever, but I like shotguns a lot. Like I actually buy them probably too much for my own good.
Yeah.
Like for my rank, I think I buy like 300% more shotguns than any other players do on the server or whatever. But I think the reason I do that is like it suits my play style. Like I like playing very aggressively and very like close quarters and stuff like that. Like I don't like running down long and like one tapping people because I'm kind of bad at that in comparison.
Yeah.
So I think shotguns fit my play style more, I guess. And that's like another thing I guess to consider, where it's like, yeah, sure. Like I think the whatever. It's like the play style of the player also matters a lot. I guess is my point. And then there's also like another interesting aspect with like the M4 in CS, because CS has two M4s, right? They have the suppressed one and the non-suppressed one.
Yeah.
And like on paper, the A4 is actually better than the A1. Like it has faster rate of fire, it has more ammo, so on and so on.
Classic
but
on paper.
Yeah, but it has a more difficult recoil pattern.
Yeah.
And so most people end up using the A1 anyways, because it's way more accurate, right? And so you have stuff like that too. Which, like, once again, depends on the player. Some players, they want to take the risk of using the unsuppressed one because it's better technically. But most players, they play it safe and go like, okay, well, I don't need to be good at aiming if I use the A1, so I'll just pick that one.
Yep.
And I feel like that's underrated as hell when it comes to balancing. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know if I like that choice particularly.
Because
it's like
I
you
think
need
they
to
should
pick.
only have one M4.
Yeah, and it's like you need to pick it before the game. It's not like you can't change it in the
well,
game.
you can do nowadays. You can pick both of them.
Yeah, so it's sort of, it actually goes back to I don't know when we talked about that, where like doing your loadout in advance is kind of uninteresting, right? Where it's like you like it's the strategy, right? Not tactics. That's what
exactly.
Like we talked about last week. But like the fundamental idea of like being a choice of risk reward or whatever, makes sense.
Yeah. We've been talking for a while about multiplayer games.
Yeah.
Do we wanna leave the listeners on a cliffhanger?
I think we need to, because there's like I don't wanna like. I have a lot to say about.
Yeah, exactly. So it feels like we're not even halfway through, guys.
We're gonna need a part 2 of this one.
Yeah, so we're gonna leave you on a cliffhanger today.
Yeah, this is gonna be part 1.
Even though we promised we promised to talk about single player games, but we're gonna do that next week. So now you have something to subscribe for and look forward to.
Unless you only cared about the multiplayer games, then
that's true.
Yeah. Then go check out our other videos, like I don't remember.
The matchmaking one.
Yeah, the matchmaking
like our second
one.
video ever or whatever.
Yeah. Watch all our multiplayer ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
We talk about multiplayer games a lot as well. I promise.
Yeah. Yeah, we've probably talked about a lot of this, as I said in the beginning, because we end up. especially like the live service stuff we complain about all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so thanks for listening, everybody. Leave a like and subscribe and a comment and all that. And I guess we'll be back here next week to talk more about balancing, but in single player games. So like,
Fantastic.
if you have something interesting to say about single player balancing, you can leave a comment about that.
Do
here.
that.
Or also
something you want us to
balancing.
bring up next week. Yeah.
And yeah, so sorry for leaving you on a cliffhanger.
No,
but,
it's exciting. We're excited.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I guess.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
Or no.
I was gonna say, like, I guess, yeah. We actually said in the beginning we were gonna talk about single player, so maybe some are very disappointed. I apologize for that, but yeah, next week. Yeah.
Yes. Goodbye now.
Bye, everyone.